let's together do this exercise. So let's go and look at what we did last class. So how was it structured? The last class we had a series of pages. I see page transition. I do not see pages, so let me dig them out. Right here, pages. Somehow the pages had got lost. Oh, they were here. In last class, I had a series of pages, page 2, page 3, page 4. In the master, I had my name, these two sections, and the arrows, right? So that's how we had it last class. Let's do it, and this is an interactive PDF. This time what we're building is a Swift. So we're going to start from scratch, but I just want to show you the difference in structure whenever you do an interactive PDF versus when you do a Swift. When you're doing an interactive PDF, you have one image per page right here. You'll see in the Swift we're going to use a multi-state object, or object states is the same thing, and so that we don't have as many pages. In fact, we'll have just 2 pages, the section for Galileo and the section for home. So let's start from scratch. I'm going to close this, just wanted to show you the difference. New document. I'm going to go under web. I'm going to choose 1024 by 768. I'm going to say that I want 2 pages because I just explained you why. We have 2 sections. I'm going to say create. So in the very first page, what I'm going to do is I'm going to, again, write my name. Actually, go in the master where I'm going to write my name. In fact, what you could do if you want to is go from the prior one and grab it. So I'm going to go actually in the master of the prior one and grab the stuff I need. That is Enrica Lovaglio Costello and those 2 pieces of text, and I'm going to go back in here and do edit, paste, and place, making sure you're in the master in here. So you want to be clicking in the master in this new file that we just created and do edit, paste, and place. So I'm just copying from what we did last class for a matter of speed, of going a little bit faster. So these guys, though, they're not buttons yet, are they? Yes, they actually are, even rollovers and everything. That's super cool. Okay, awesome. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to call this one Galileo, and this one I'm going to call it home. I'm going to actually close what I did last because I don't need it. Is everybody with me? Means you have your name, 2 sections, and now we're ready to build the object states. So what I need to do is, I'm at the moment in the master. If I go in the pages, you can see that. I'm in master A. I'm going to go in page number 1, you see right now is highlighted, even though it looks identical to the master, because remember, the master is, after all, showing up in every page, right? Whatever you put in the master, this master A will show up in here and in here, and that's why you see that A on top of it, right? So what I'm going to do right now is, in page 1, I'm going to put the Galileo images. So I'm going to go in here and do Command D, and I'm going to go and browse to images that pertain to Galileo. I'm going to put it roughly here, and then I'm going to deselect, Command D. I'm going to just grab a few images, maybe 4 per each will be enough. Command D. And Command D. Please follow me and ask questions if you have any questions. Bless you, bless you. Here we are. So I have 4 images, one on top of the other. And I'm ready to do my first object state. I am in page 1. So I'm going to go in here. As I said earlier, make sure you click and drag so you select all of them. Don't make the mistake to click on the top one and do the object state, because only the top one will end up in it. And you need them all. So I'm going to go under object states right now. And I'm going to click on this little icon that we have learned creates new stuff, right? The same icon you find in layers, in Photoshop and Illustrator. So it's that little folded sheet allows us to create a new something depending on the palette you're in. So I'm going to click on there, and as I can see that this is cool. It's actually my multi-state object, and I'm going to call it, I'm going to actually multi-state, I'm going to call it Galileo _ IMGS. Perfect. So now I need to do the same thing and have it in the following page, this time of the house. So I'm going to go again in pages, go in page 2, where again I have the same thing. And you know what I could do in page 2 if I wanted to, it would have been smart to start with a box somewhere, is I could take this one, copy it on page 2, edit, paste, and place. Not that I need it in there, but I need to see where I place this guy. So I'm going to do right now, I'm going to go in and create a box on top of that state, so I know where this guy is, right, on page 2. And then I go in the layers, and I move create a new layer, move the box there, lock it up, so I can now select it or turn it off, and then go and select this guy and delete it. My point is, I was just trying to get the location that, so that page 1 and page 2 stays the same. So I went, did a copy, did a box, and then selected that copy and deleted it because I didn't need it here. In other words, I needed this guy in here, but I needed in here the location of it. And so I copied it by doing what I did. I'm sure you guys got it. If not, raise your hand. So what I need to do is right now I need to populate this with the new images of the house. So I Command-Shift-Click so that I overwrite this object if it was in the master. In this case, it's not in the master. It's just that I realized I locked it. So let me go in the pages. If it's in the master, the reason why you do Command-Shift-Click is because you need to overwrite that object. So if this thing was in the master, you Command-Shift-Clicked on it. In this case, it's just here, so it's good. So I'm going to do Command-D, and I'm going to go and grab images of the house right now. Again, 4 images. So I'm going to go deselect, Command-D. Command-D, and I'm going to grab this one and one last one, Command-D. Let's see if I find one like this. Perfect. Command-D. Oops, this one is bigger. Sorry, guys. I got to get one that is the same size. Command-D. It looks much better if you do. And this one also is bigger. Okay, I'm going to do some little bit of clipping work. Okay, like this. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is I go with my white arrow and move the image. So I'm doing a little clipping of the image through using the frames, so that is the same size. I kind of like them to be all the same size so that there's no jumping around. So now I'm going to do what I did earlier. I command click and drag, so I select them all. And again, I'm going to go in object state, click new, and this time I'm going to call it home _imgs for images. So I have my 2 object states. One is Galileo, one is home. I have one in page 1 and the other one in page 2. I have my sections right here ready to go that I can give actions. Now what I need to do is the thumbnails that fly in from the side and have those thumbnails being triggered by those buttons, right? That's what we need to do. Okay, so let's do that. So I'm going to go back into my page 1, and I'm going to zoom out a little bit so you guys can see what I'm doing. I'm going to create a grid of 4 images right here. And I showed you how you create a grid. You click and drag. Like I'm going to put it here. And then you use the arrow keys. In my case, I need just 1, 2, 3 times the top arrow keys. And I got my 4 little cells right there. Guys see that? So I clicked and dragged with the box tool, and then I just used the arrow key, the top arrow key, to make this division right here. And I did not worry about, holding Apple and arrow key to change the gutter. It doesn't matter that much to me. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to convert these to images, image boxes by going into content and graphic. And now I'm ready to bring in images, right? So I'm going to go in here and do Command-D. And I'm going to pick, now I need to pick the same images I chose that I forgot what they are. Yeah, sorry. I need to go in my object state and see which images I use because I forget. So this one, this one, this one, and this one. Cool, I got it. So I'm going to go back in here and then do Command-D. And I'm going to choose this one. Don't worry that right now I don't see anything. I'll show you how easily you can bring it to what you need it to be, in terms of seeing what you want it to be. Command-D, the one of the the haircut, and then there is one more, Command-D, this one. Okay, how is it that they're like that? Because if you go with a white arrow, you see that the image is a lot bigger than my thumbnail. So how do I fix that? I select my thumbnails, and I go under Object, Fitting, Fit Content Proportionally. Yay! Now I can see my images. Life is good. What I'm not too fond of is that the boxes have the stroke, and so you kind of get a weird effect. So I'm going to go in here, make sure select that stroke, and I go in here and say apply none. So I don't have a stroke, I just see my images. If I hit W, that's how it looks, pretty nice and clean. W is the preview mode, right? I'm going to move them so that they're kind of aligned with the top of my images, but that's kind of all I need. Okay, perfect. So what I need to do right now is I need to convert these to buttons that trigger the multi-state object. So I'm going to click on this one, and I'm going to say, okay, so how do I do that? I go in my buttons, and I'm going to go in here and say I want it to be a button. I wanted to call it Galileo thumbnail 1. I generally copy and paste it for all the other to make it quicker. Right in here, I want to say, I'm going to go down here where the Swift exists, and I want to say go to state. And then when you say go to state, you have to choose which image, which multi-state you need. Galileo images sounds great, but is state 1 what you want? If you click on here, it is. State 1 is what you want. It gives you a preview. Now you can do the rollover right here by, for example, giving it a stroke, for example, around the object, or making it lower in opacity. Up here you should have an opacity box that my projector generally cuts out. So let me go and see if I find the transparency object. Let me see. I generally find it up there, so it's hard for me to now. Let's see where it is. But okay, let me actually go in here and instead put a color. Actually go in the swatches and put a color behind it, maybe something like that. So I'm going to put a little color behind it as the rollover state. That's fine. So let me go back into buttons, go back to normal, and I basically need to do the same exact thing for each of these. So I'm going to go back in here, say button. I'm going to generally I command V it and I put thumbnail 2 so I don't have to type it every time. Go to state. Go under the multi-state object Galileo and click on here, and I have the one with Mama in Italy, and life is good. Then I do the same thing with this. Buttons, you go right in here, you go and choose button. Oh, I forgot to put the rollover state in the prior one. That's okay, I'll go back to it. Thumbnail 3, I'm going to say go to state. And I'm going to go in here, and in the rollover, I'm going to put a fill behind it. Go back to my buttons, make sure I'm in normal. Then I'm going to select this button and do the rollover because I missed it. I'm sorry earlier, I didn't pay attention enough. Perfect. I'm actually going to go to normal. I have one more, and then we're good. So I'm going to go back in here, and again, I'm going to do buttons. I'm going to make it into a button. I'm going to choose Command V, 4. I'm going to say go to state. Here I'm going to choose the, state 3. And I'm going to create my rollover with the cyan behind it. Okay, so now I did one little mistake, I know. That is, in this button here, I did not pay attention to which multi-state I was targeting. So the multi-state here should be 4. Perfect. So now I'm going to save it because I've done enough work that is worth saving it. So I'm going to go in, I'm going to go inside portfolio, and I'm going to call it SWF demo because the other one was the PDF demo. Say save. Okay, so right now let's actually just preview it for the sake of making sure that all these buttons work. Where is the preview? Interactive preview. I use this one because it opens up bigger. I could use it, the one of the buttons. But right here, I need to say play. And then if I click on here, this shows up. If I click on here, this one show up. Perfect. They work. So how do I get them to fly in, and how do they get them triggered by Galileo right here? So what I need to do is, first and foremost, I need to grab this Galileo that is in the master and put it at the level of that page, actually. But actually, let's leave it. Let's first do the animation. So I'm going to select all this, and to do the animation, I already tell you it's better to group them because animation likes to handle one object. So if I do Command G, it perceives it as one object. Then I'm going to go in the animation palette that is down here, and I'm going to say, okay, what I want to do is, this is the group I'm going to call it Galileo group. Notice I name everything. I'm really as organized as I can get. Which preset do you want? We want it to fly in from the left, right? So that is outside of the page, but then it flies in, right? Perfect. And do we want it to happen on page load? Not really. We want to click on here and say, I want the trigger to be, see that it becomes a little target. Notice that when you click on this button, the cursor becomes a little target, and then you can click on this button. Now, I told you earlier, though, that I needed to actually make this button be in here, unfortunately, because if it's in the master, it does not see it. So that's why I said I need to do it, but then I said, let's not do it so you see if I don't, what happens. So what I'm going to do is, before I do that again, I'm going to go in my pages, I'm going to go inside the master, I'm going to grab Galileo and cut it, Command X, and I'm going to go in page 1 and do edit, paste, and place. Okay, now Galileo is right in here, so it should be much easier. So I'm going to go back into animation, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to click on this, and I'm going to go and click on this one. And you can see that this time it noticed it and said, okay, great. So what does it do this? So this button allows me to go to page because I was going to a certain page, but I don't need that. I just need the button to trigger the animation. So I'm going to actually uncheck, or actually you can select it and say minus. Perfect. So this button allows me to play this animation, and it has a rollover, and life is good, and it's called Galileo. I'm going to call it Galileo, no, Galileo 2. Perfect. So let's preview it again now. Oops. Sorry, my mouse got a little bit stuck. Until interactive preview. Oh, I just realized, sorry, I did not save it. So when we preview, though, the problem is that there is a page on-page load action in there that makes it loads automatically, and that's not what we want. Sorry, I'm going to minimize it, put it here so it's always available. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to go back into my animation and see what happens. If I go in animation, I see that in the action this says on page load and on release. So what I really need to do is I need to uncheck on page load so it happens only on release of this button. Now I'm going to save it. Sorry I didn't save it earlier because it's kind of important to save it. And now I'm going to hit the play button, and now it's not there, right? When I click on Galileo, it flies in. Then when I click on the thumbnails, things change. So do you see how this happens? Now you need to do the same exact thing on page 2. So it would take a lot longer in this video screencasting, but what you need to do is, once again, on page 2, you need to go inside the master and grab that button. Now you know why you need to grab the button, right? You have learned it. I'm going to do Command X. I'm going to go back into my pages. I'm going to go in page 2. I'm going to say edit, paste, and place. Now you do on page 2, though, also you want that prior button, but this time that takes you to the prior page. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to go on page 1 here, and I'm going to grab that button and say Command Copy, go in page 2, do edit, paste, and place, but this time, instead of triggering the animation, you need to go in the button and say do not trigger the animation. Well, it doesn't have actions because I copied it and pasted. When you copy and paste, sometimes it loses the action. So I'm going to go here and say I want it to go to the previous page, sorry. In that case, whenever I'm in here and I want to go to Galileo, I go to the previous page. Now this home button should also be, though, in page 1 and take me here, right? So I'm going to go again in my pages, go in page 1, do edit, paste, and place. And again, go in my buttons and forms and say I want this one to not go to page. Oops. Not go to page, but I want it to go to the next page, right? So you go in here and say to the next page. Okay, so if you look at these pages right now, what a way it works out is Galileo is actually the trigger for these guys to kick in. And once they kick in, you can navigate through them this way. Home is the trigger to go into this page where you're going to have a series of thumbnails that kick in on this side. What I would do, though, is instead of having the thumbnail being triggered by this button, make sure the thumbnails are actually being actually loaded on page load. That means when you click on home, you jump in here and the thumbnails kick in. So that will make it easier so you don't have to do one more click, right? Because in anything that is interactive and web, you want to do the minimum amount of clicks. So what you would want to do here is create the thumbnails again. So go in here, do your click and drag, add the arrow keys to create 4 columns, right? Like we did earlier. Then I'm going to remove the stroke right here, because earlier we learned we don't really necessarily want the stroke. And then I'm going to go into object, content, graphic, go in and populate them. So go and do Command D, and I'm going to grab the images I hope I used. I have to admit I should have gone and looked. I'm hoping I'm getting the right one. I think it's one of these, maybe this one, and say open. And now I'm gonna, notice when I browse to multiple one, now I have a browser that tells me 4, and I can go in and choose where I want to put them. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Perfect. Then I select them all, and then I do object fitting, fit content proportionally. So now I see them. So now that I have those, I do what I did earlier. I make each one into a button to trigger this one, right? That makes this change. In fact, let me do it really quick. I'm going to go in here, say button, oops, button, and I'm going to call it home underscore thumb 1. And then you go in actions and say go to state. And this time, home images, and which one is that one? What am I doing? Sorry, I'm looking at this one. Okay, cool. So I'm going to go back in here and try to find that one that is, actually, I picked 2 different ones. And then you go in rollover, you do your, make sure that you add that cyan, so that is the same. Say okay. So you get the picture though, that I'm sorry, I actually picked the 2 wrong images, but let's imagine that these are actually all linked. And they're all perfect, perfectly working. I'm going to go in here, I'm going to say Command G, I'm going to do the animation, and I'm going to make it fly from the right, right? So I'm going to go in here, I'm going to call it home IMGS, choose fly in from right, perfect. And I would do it on page load. So bottom line, if you do that, what happened is when you click on home, it takes you to this page and these kick in, and then you can use them to navigate through the multi-state object. Let's preview it. Went a little bit fast, but hopefully you can watch this over and over again at home. That's why I do the screencasting. Okay, sorry, we need to go multi-pages and start from the beginning. There it is. So when I go on Galileo, my thumbnails show me Galileo. When I go on home, this has the thumbnails flying in, and then I can, right now, is only the first one is working. So you kind of get the picture on how you achieve the thumbnails effect using, and you don't need to animate, by the way. I could have done it without animation. It was just a way to teach you a little more. Does anybody have any questions?